Yeah, I mean, it's just like the whole idea of the stuff you've been talking about. I don't know, with the magnetic, the vacuum, all of that stuff. I had been looking into like the periodic table of elements, and I started in the beginning. I was drawn to lithium, that it was the name or the letters are Li. And then I looked and I saw iron, which I have highlighted for some reason on this periodic table of elements that's hanging on my wall. And so iron is Fe, and I'm like, oh, Li and Fe, that's life, lithium and iron. And then I just got to thinking about, okay, well, iron is in the blood, lithium is also in the body, and so is hydrogen. And so are most of these elements, the ones that are actually created. And then I realized that all of the elements themselves were created from hydrogen. That hydrogen itself, if you look at the atomic structure of an atom, for instance, and like the electron shells that make up an atom, if you think of these shells as like rings, or rings of gravitation or force, right, where the electrons are spinning so fast that they're actually like the electrons themselves are vibrating at such a high rate of speed that they're actually orbiting around other things, and that vibration is what's creating the gravity, right? That's binding these things into this sort of orbits, and they're spinning and they're moving. And the reason that hydrogen stands above all others is because it has a perfected shell, meaning it has 8 electrons. And so it's been perfected. In essence, it's ascended, right? Because it's the lightest element, and it's the first element. And the sun itself is just hydrogen. And what happens when you superheat hydrogen atoms? You get helium.
Really?
And so when I was looking into this, and I was understanding that what we do when we create plasma. So like in nuclear fusion, they take a bunch of magnets and they put them in a circle with a bunch of mirrors. They're actually magnetic mirrors. And then they flood the chamber with, I think it's 4 hydrogen atoms. And then they superheat the chamber and excite the hydrogen, and the hydrogens start colliding. And this creates helium. And then the magnets trap or contain that explosive force, right? And it creates an implosion of the force instead of an explosion. And the implosion actually creates plasma. And from that imploded energy into a plasma ball, they can derive endless energy that will never run out, because the amount of energy that was required to generate this reaction is less than the amount of energy generated by the reaction, thereby achieving, free energy, or, unlimited energy. So this whole idea then, if taken into the self, where you're looking at, and I've been listening to a lot of stuff by this guy, Dan Winter, right? Yeah. I don't know if you've heard of him, but
yep, I've heard of him. Yep.
Everything he talks about with implosion and consciousness, that consciousness is this implosion of like a linear wave, like a scalar wave, or I don't know, that he gets so technical, and he talks so quickly.
He does get really tech. I think that's exactly what John Keeley was saying. It's all implosion and vacuum. That's where I get I'm getting my vacuum like theory, where like all forces are is like a vacuum. It's caused by the path, like it's like the law of one, but like it's like the universal laws have a order of priority, and the number one, like the highest priority law is the law of one, and that is like basically the law of like vacuums. You can never be a vacuum because we're all one. That's like how it breaks down, I guess. But getting into that,
Well,
yeah,
the vacuum is actually, esoterically speaking, it would be the zero, right? The nothing, the
yeah,
no thing, and then you have the one, which is, um, like the male principle, the generative force, and the zero being the womb,
yeah,
uh,
exactly.
the creative
Yes.
force, and then you have chaos and order, and all of these concepts are embodied within the idea of a vacuum, and uh,
Well,
you
the
know,
like even like modern science, not that it really matters what they think, but they agree that there you can achieve over unity when there's a like four different things that happen. A When there's air cavitation, which is an implosion, like when like
oh
if you
wait,
have
are we actually recording this or
yeah, I think so.
okay?
You say yeah, recording. But yeah, like there's a air cavitation, water hammer, like uh something to do with like uh light emission. I think it's called anti-Stokes emission, something like that. And then the last one was sound, but on like a sphere. And that guy John Kelly was using like all four of them, all four of those like methods of over unity in one machine. And like the machine was labeled as a perpetual motion machine in the Philadelphia Franklin Institute in
So
Philadelphia.
you bring up Keeley, and I had just been reading because I listened to your latest live stream, and you had mentioned him, and you had mentioned him in conjunction with Atlas Shrugged and John
Yeah,
Galt, and
yeah. I actually watched it. That movie was bad, but I had to. For some reason, I felt like I had to watch it to finish it. Kind of
you
skipped
got to
around.
read the book though, because
Yeah,
in the book it really to me what she was talking about or what she was describing was kind of like an archetype, I guess, or
oh my God.
someone who defied archetypes or broke a mold by setting this high standard that basically the geniuses of the world were the ones that really raised the consciousness, and that the collective consciousness itself was always trying to degrade or trivialize or make the least common denominator all that was great,
Yeah,
right?
like
All that was God, all that was genius was always being attacked and minimalized and reduced down essentially. Because if you look at culture and how the extremely wealthy, like royalty, for instance, and then you watch as you go down through this class system where you get to the quote unquote masses, it's nobody, they're not living in the same reality at all,
yeah,
down to the materials of their clothing and the state of their body and their health. I mean, it's just
yeah.
so
Actually,
I
I had on that stream. I actually did a stream before that, but I think I messed it up or something, and I didn't go through. So I did like next day I did another one, and I like forgot half the stuff I was talking about, or like I didn't mention half the stuff I was talking about. But one of the things I wanted to talk about was there's this comic called Invincible. They made it. It's actually a show now, um, but it's like
yeah, I think Amanda told me about that. We were in the bookstore not too long ago, and we were
it's really
looking in the manga
really good.
section and saw
Yeah,
it.
it's definitely really. And the show is even actually pretty good, even though it's got some I don't know the usual like I don't know the wokeness in it. But anyway, the that comic like even Atlas Shrugs, I always see in like movies and books and stuff about people doing stuff for the greater good and like Dr. Manhattan, or they have to like that's what Atlas Shrugs basically talk about, right? With the greater good, how they're saying we have to help the public good, or this is for the this is for the greater good or whatever. But I've never seen anything like give a solution to like get around that. And the only thing that has I've ever come across that gives a solution for that is that comic book Invincible. And it's like the main character like figures out that no, the greater good is not the way to go. The way to go is people have to choose to help themselves. Like they have to master themselves. They have to choose it. They have to pick it. They can't be given it. You know what I mean? And that was like the first book I came across that actually like gives a solution kind of. And I wanted
Yeah,
to get
and
into that in my last video, my last stream, but I forgot about it.
I think John Galt kind of
Yeah,
embodies that too.
yeah,
The
exactly.
perfection of self, and by extension, once the self is perfected, or as the alchemist performs the alchemy on themselves, then they also perform alchemy externally on matter, experimenting, always pushing the boundaries, always trying to find something deeper within the process. So for the alchemist, experimentation and spagyrics and all of these things were crucial to the inner work, but the inner work was actually where they were deriving the wisdom and the knowledge of how to proceed with the external. So for instance, if we look at like John Galt, he came to a place of perfection of self, and then he felt like he was ready to create this thing. This was what he was there to do. Like his sort of purpose in life was to create this motor, and by creating this motor and showing the collective what is possible for the individual to achieve, if only they set their minds to greatness within themselves. And it was like this very like, I don't know, some people saw John Galt as like pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and but John Galt was also a genius. And why was he a genius? Because he had arrived at that genius somehow. And so you brought up Keeley,
I think
and
that John
Keeley's
Galt is
connection
really, yeah.
to John Galt is so apt, I think, because if you read the Keeley story, even if it's just the Wikipedia page, which is fascinating, what you really are seeing is a guy. So I just finished reading this book called The Red Lion, probably about a month or so ago. And it's basically about an alchemist going through multiple incarnations with their memory intact, but also being plagued by demons, and eventually getting to a lifetime where they became a master of themselves. And that this whole cycle of reincarnation changes for them, because what they did was, by mastering the self, they were able to create the philosopher's stone, right? And they were able to generate for themselves an energy body, if you will, to survive death with memory intact. And this is really the goal of all magicians and alchemists and sorcerers. And there's so many different ways to come at this. But I think what you see with Keeley's story is it said he was a carnival barker, a carpenter, he was a mechanic, and he did some other stuff.
He was
Some guy
amazing at like making metal. Like he like manufactured all the metal for all of his machines. He used like certain types of metal. He was like amazing at that kind of stuff.
And he had a pattern of finding patrons to fund, like he had this guy pay him, or pay for materials for him to perform experiments, and then whatever he developed out of that, whatever patents he filed, that guy would be 50-50 ownership of the patent. So he was trying to claim that Keeley's motor was half his, in a sense. But the Wikipedia article paints a picture of a guy who is getting people to give him immense sums of money. First of all, he's 35 years old, virtually unknown to anyone. and he shows up at 1422 North 20th Street in Philadelphia, which intersects, it's a corner. It's one of those like sharp angled corner addresses where it meets Master Street. So that's where his workshop was at 20th and Master. Right. And so there he decides to display something to people. And he was immediately given like $5 million. This was 1872. $5 million, which was, I guess, the equivalent of like $95 million today. Now, nobody knows who this guy is. And here he is displaying something which he's been working on or developing. And it got people that interested. And then immediately it was like, there was recently just this show about that guy that ran WeWork. And it was, I think it was on Hulu. It was basically, he went around and he bought up large spaces, corporate, like real estate spaces and buildings. And then he would rent them out. He would renovate them. And then he would rent out like booths and stuff to people that would come and work there. And, you know, he had ping pong tables and a bar and all of this stuff. So most people weren't, I guess they were getting work done, but they were also partying. And there was this whole culture around it. But he kept driving up the valuation of his stock. And then right before COVID happened, his board pushed him out and took over the company, but he got a huge payout and he was still making money after that. But when COVID hit, WeWork just tanked. Right. So, and he's from Israel and like he was buying up property based up on numerology. So he was into Kabbalah and numerology. Like, so I see a lot of what Keeley was doing was a guy who was very skilled in the occult and esoteric knowledge.
Yeah, he was in the Theosophical Society or whatever. I forget what that
was. He? Okay,
yeah,
so there you go.
He was like one of the main guys in it in the late 1800s, and because it was all like centered around Philadelphia, right? That whole society. I don't know a lot about them or that lady who was like a supposedly like a fortune teller or whatever. But Keeley was in that society, I'm pretty sure. And he was like, well, I think he was one of the main guys. But
You talking about Alice Bailey?
no, the is it Maria? Maria? Oh my God, how am I blanking on this?
This is a Philadelphia person.
Yeah, a lot of people talk about her. Oh my God, what the hell is his name? It was in that Theosophical Society or whatever. I forget her name.
Yeah, Theosophy. You're talking about Blavatsky?
Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Helena Blavatsky.
Yeah, but I don't think she was that. I think she was kind of a charlatan.
Well, I mean,
But
she
they had
was
they had a lot of inventors and like engineers in that group. Like there's a legitimate aspect to that group, I think.
well, that was like, so when Keeley was doing all of this, that was smack dab in the middle of that whole revival that was going on in the Pennsylvania, upper New York area. Was not just like with Christians, but also this revival of the esoteric traditions. So Blavatsky, the Theosophical Society was part of that. You had Edgar Casey. You had Steiner. You had after that came a few others, but during the like 1880s and 1890s. That was like the thing. Mediums, all of the extremely wealthy people were building their gilded mansions and stuff.
Yeah, that's why I think Atlas Shrugged like that. I watched the movie, so I don't know if the book has it set in the early 1900s, but I think that's when it actually happened, and I think they actually did do something like that. But it was Keeley was John Gall, I guess.
because the motor actually never gets released, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
Keeley is written off as a fraud
yeah.
and a con man and a charlatan,
Hmm.
but he was able to demonstrate certain things that other people claimed it was just compressed air, or that it was an illusion or a trick. But I think that Keeley he had so much money. What was he doing with all of that money if he wasn't actually doing something?
The book that I was reading on it, written by Dale Pond, he has an awesome lecture about one of Keely's motors, and he gets into some stuff that's like crazy. It's one of the best lectures I think I've ever watched on YouTube. I posted on my channel actually. It's called the Basic Principles of Sympathetic Vibratory Physics of John World Keely by Dale Pond. Dale Pond's the guy who figured it out, and yeah, like they in one of Dale Pond's books, he talks about this group called the Syndicate that contacted Keely and got him. They took him to like a quarry or something, and he had this device called the compound disintegrator, where he would match he had a certain tuning device. He would match the tuning device to the rock, to like the quartz crystal or whatever, and it would match. It would like sync with it, and then he would put that like frequency into his compound disintegrator machine, and it would like match that, and then he could match the resonant frequency of the rock, and then he would slowly like move move the frequency like up or down, and like slightly push it out, and then it would just disintegrate all the rock crystals. Like the matter would just fall apart, and then all that would be left was like the gold and the minerals in that rock in the quarry. And they paid him a crap ton of money, and then right after that, every single gold mine, every single mine in like America was bought out by this group called the Syndicate. And I've been watching this guy called the Archivist, and he looks at old newspaper articles, and he said a couple times he mentions that I keep seeing this group pop up called the Syndicate, and he said he thinks it's the not it was the Germans, it was the good Nazis or whatever, like the ones that had to escape and got painted as bad, I guess, not the actual bad ones. You know what I mean? But
I mean, it sounds like BlackRock,
yeah,
you
kind
know,
of.
modern day BlackRock.
And Black Rock, that's don't they the Muslims worship a black rock? I don't know.
Yeah, the Kaaba stone.
Yeah, and isn't that it's a meteor, right? Meteorite, apparently.
Supposedly. I mean, if you think about here's the thing for me, like when I'm hearing this story, what I'm hearing is that like whatever Keely was doing, he knew what was going on, but he understood too that he couldn't truly explain it to people whose consciousness wasn't really ready for what he was dealing with.
Yeah, I don't think
Because
we're ready for it back then. I don't think so, but I think we're ready now. To be honest with
I think we're a lot closer
you. Yeah, close.
now. I mean, this kind of stuff is juicy and mouthwatering now, but back in his time, and see, maybe what happened was Keely was part of the Theosophical Society. So obviously he was tapped in to these people, and why were they giving him so much money to begin with, right? So in a way, if he's conning anyone, he's conning them. You see, because he's getting the money from them. So in this book, The Red Lion, the alchemist, in one of the lives that he's living, he's actually working for royalty. He's going from like kingdom to kingdom, and the king will hire him as an alchemist. They give him an entire laboratory. They get everything he asks for. If he needs like the most modern equipment, the king would provide it.
How does he prove himself? Like, why do they believe him?
So, because he keeps making excuses and he keeps putting them off like Keely did. Because what Keeley was really doing had nothing to do with a car or a motor, right? Like in his mind, he was working on something for himself. He was working on himself, right? And he was trying to, I don't know, survive death in some way. But I also think he was trying to put something in the world. So I think he believed he could deliver. I think that part of the thing was that maybe the syndicate or whoever these people were understood what he was creating and felt like humanity's not ready for that, or they didn't want humanity to have that. And so they wanted to suppress whatever it was by discrediting it and calling him, a hoax. Just like John Galt was basically called terrible names. I don't think they ever tortured him because I think Galt was too smart and he got away.
Yeah,
I don't know what actually happened to Keeley in the end.
Yeah, I know they tortured him. He probably, I don't know. Speaking of like hiding away in a different realm, like escaping this realm, people talk about like not the syndicate, but like specifically, but like a not Nazi like UFOs that escaped to the North Pole or something like that. And I've even um, I'm at Mammoth Cave, Kentucky right now. Like right outside the window is Mammoth Cave, the mountain where Mammoth Cave is. And there's a book about Mammoth Cave called Wonderful Discovery or something like that. And in it, the guy describes it's like from the 1800s. The guy describes they went like 2 weeks into this cave. They had supplies and everything, but they went like 2 weeks deep into this cave, and eventually they came into like a cavern. Not even a cavern. They came into like a different realm where they found like there was a sun, there was like uh, grass everywhere, trees everywhere. There's flying people. This sounds insane, but like these people, they were like Indians, like feather Indians, not dot Indians, but they were like uh, flying on like griffins, and they like landed near them, and they I don't know. It sounds kind of outlandish now that I'm talking about it, but um, I think there's other worlds that they would be able to escape to if that's really what was like going down back then. I don't know, but
Yeah, I don't know if, I mean, some of these things, like when you hear stories about the North Pole voyage, where they described the giant black mountain.
yeah, Mount
Um,
Meru, Mount Meru, right?
I think so,
Is that what it's called?
but it's a black rock, right? It's just a
Oh
giant
yeah, sure.
black pyramid, basically.
No, it's actually called Mount. Is it Meru? I forget, but I think the word actually is means black. Something I don't know, but
Something that means,
Rufus. No,
yeah,
that's it.
black rock.
Rufus Negra, which
Yeah,
sounds
there
like
you go,
black.
black rock.
Yeah, Black Rock. Exactly.
Um, that was in the show Lost. Remember, they found that
I never actually watched it. Actually.
it was a pirate ship, but it was called the Black Rock.
Okay.
And so
Black
they,
Pearl?
or the Black Pearl,
Yeah,
maybe it
remember
was.
Pirates of the Caribbean? That's the name of the ship in that.
Okay, so the ship, this is strange then, because Pirates of the Caribbean, they got a ship named Black Pearl. But on Lost, I think it was called Black Rock, but it was they kept thinking it was a rock, but it was actually this pirate ship that was somehow in the middle of this island, and it was loaded with dynamite. So, it was like the dynamite was how they opened the hatch. And that's what started everything. Once they got into that hatch, it was like the entire narrative of the show really took off, It was like a symbolic thing. So they had to go to the Black Rock, and then something else happened there later too. Like somebody morphed in, like somebody's father showed up and somehow was just there, right, on the island and then was gone. So like people could get transported off the island somehow without like physical means. So like if there's people living under the earth, I mean,
Did you
yeah, maybe maybe it's about your vibration or your energy,
could
you
be
know, because but there's stories of, you know, not the Hindus, but the Tibetans, right? They have the Hyperborea story, right? And then you have hollow earth theory and all of these other things that kind of speak to that there being places within the earth that are, I guess, like other worlds with sky and everything.
Yeah, like my last live stream, I think it was my last one. I talk about um, this comic I used to read. It was like on a hiatus for a while, and I just happened to look it up to see if it was back. It had a bunch of new chapters, so I was reading it, and it's called Tower of God, and it's like each, it's like there's this tower, like the Tower of Babylon, basically, and Tower of Babel, I mean. And each floor is like an entire world, and the goal of each floor is to figure out how to get to the next level. And that sounds a lot like real life, if you ask me. Like it's a get out of the like the Matrix kind of. I don't know. Like there's different. You're always in. I don't know. It's interesting that all these things are kind of connected right
Yeah, I mean,
now. And then
it's
even in that comic, it's like there's 10 families that run the tower, and they have names like Jihad is the number one guy. Like I don't know, Muslim Jihad. They pray to the Black Rock. Then you have another one of the guys. His name is Khun, Khun, which is one of the dudes, one of the families that was that started the what the hell's that island? Jekyll Island. He was on Jekyll Island and made the Federal Reserve. So it's like one of the ruling families, basically. I heard that first from that comic. I don't know. It's there's so many like connections.
If you look at like the ancient Vedas and some of like the esoteric writings of, I don't want to call them Muslims because they're not, they're just Islamic esotericists.
That's right.
But
That's what I meant.
the meteorites and stuff have always kind of, they have a certain energy to them, like Moldavite, because they weren't necessarily on the earth before. And we don't really know where they come from. At least I don't. I'm sure somebody does. Because what are they is actually like a living entity with information. And that's what that energy is. It's information. So a lot of these meteorites are coveted, especially by certain people to use for certain things, because the energy within these crystals that come out of these meteorites is just unique. And so they know how to manipulate and work with that. And I think a lot of those, that they're like entities in and of themselves, like you could communicate with them and interface with them. So yeah, I mean, the Kaaba stone being a meteorite or being this sort of entity that is worshipped, the energy itself, like the rotation even of the people around the stone in that counterclockwise motion, just constant.
Like, Saturn, like that storm on the top of Saturn, that they say is on the top of Saturn. It's a cube.
Right.
And
what's that?
Saturn, the sixth.
The hexagram.
Yeah, exactly.
But Saturn is alchemically lead and associated with, I believe, the root chakra.
And Sauron, Satan, Santa, Sargon. It's like all the Soros. I don't know about Soros, but the rest of them, I don't think it's like bad. It's not like evil. It's like it's the archetype for like uh, domination. I don't know, not domination, but like manipulation maybe, or like mastery. Not like I
Well,
don't know.
most
Like
source
no, it's
I've been reading, we
I
got
think
the
it's
whole
domination actually, but like
we
yeah,
we were gifted the whole set of Carlos Castaneda's books just recently, and I'd already started looking into Toltec dreaming, like lucid dreaming techniques and the mechanisms that the Toltecs used, like their shamans trained in. Like basically, it's the same stuff that Don Juan is teaching Carlos Castaneda, uh,
Don
and
Juan's
it's,
man. I like him.
I mean, like these sorcerers, the way it's actually presented in Hollywood, it's like they're wearing these robes and they can shoot stuff out of their hands, and a lot of that is probably true, but there's very few of those people. And you see these more in the East, where, like in the Chinese tradition with the I Ching and Qigong, there are Qigong masters that can set things on fire with their
Yep,
hands from a distance,
flying.
or stop people in their tracks with just energy.
What was that movie? Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. I think that might have been actually somewhat true. The way that they're moving in that back in the day. This is
Yeah,
like
because
way older
that's
times.
what
Yeah,
that's what always made me think about this was the martial arts movies always used to show the people flying
yeah.
or able to like walk up walls with very light footsteps and
I think
almost
that's yeah.
defy gravity. And so you get the sense that they had to train in these monasteries. So when you actually look into Shaolin martial arts and the Shaolin monks, they train on energy, on how to manipulate energy, and not just that, but their own energy, how to build chi, how to hone their chi and use it, like in the art, the martial art, right? How to channel the energy through the arm into the fist, into the opponent's rib cage, and like all of that is done through meditation and visualization and breath work and movements and like practicing certain katas and different rote movements that are tied to it, like different energies representing different forces and mechanisms to train the unconscious so that they could actually slow down time in a moment, right? To see a fist come by and then to move and strike. It's like everything is very slowed down because they're in the moment, right? They're moving with the moment, and instead of like witnessing it happen, right? Like I don't know how to describe it, but this is also what all of the alchemists were doing. This is the same thing. All of this energy work is really all about the same thing. And there are people who have achieved a state of mastery, and they call them masters or grandmasters. And these people have been able to demonstrate a control over the four elements within themselves. And so, you know, it is possible to levitate, to shoot electricity out of your hands, to start fire, and do all of these things because it's just energy. And the shamans always said, to Carlos, Don Juan was training him to see the energy, to see reality is to see energy. And that is what the training is about, is to be able to actually see it so that you can interact and master it.
Yeah, like I watched this guy Jay Dreamers. I don't know if you heard of him. He's like a plasma apocalypse guy or whatever, but he does these movie reviews, and he's been reviewing the Chronicles of Riddick. You ever hear that with Vin Diesel?
Oh yeah, I think I saw that years ago.
Yeah, or like that whole series. And basically, Riddick can see energies, and that's why he's like so good at like killing in it. Like he's not really like the bad guy, but like he gets a bad rap, I guess. But he goes over the name for Riddick, like what that means, like the etymology of it, and apparently it means like red or robin. And I swear I've been getting these little robins pop up wherever I'm walking outside. They always show up, like right on the sidewalk, and they won't move. I'll walk right by them, and they won't like fly away. Robins everywhere. And at the same time I'm watching this Riddick movie. I mean the review or whatever, and he's relating it to the plasma apocalypse. Or I actually don't think there's going to be any type of apocalypse like that. I think the apocalypse is us awakening. It's an apocalypse for the quote unquote elite from their point of
Yeah,
view.
because that's why
It's us.
they always
We're
push the
we're the
apocalypse.
apocalypse. I think. And doesn't apocalypse mean revelation or something like that? And
Yeah, it's
revealing.
a revealing.
Yeah,
It's not really an end of the world per se. Like
yeah,
that's
that's
my
actually
thing with all of the reset talk
yeah,
is, okay, I can see that resets are probably something that happens, right? But is it resetting the entire planet versus like a region resetting itself? I've seen nature reset itself in just the last 6 months. I've watched it on my own land. How certain, here's my theory, is that the soil itself is like a womb. Okay, it's chaos. It's the black, right? And the light comes down and it hits the darkness, and out of the darkness comes life. That's like out of the womb comes the child, the
yeah,
birth of this new living plasma. And so the rain is sending down information that's being charged in the clouds.
yeah.
The lightning is coming actually from the earth itself back up to the sky. I believe that's the communication line, right? And this is all like negatively charged ions. And so
Yeah.
you can look at it scientifically, but you can also see on top of that there's a sentience to how these things, there's a pattern. If land is being abused or polluted, typically things stop growing or really, really nauseous things grow like vines and thorns, especially if you're dumping garbage. Because
Yeah,
now it's trying to like consume that, right? Like I always wondered this. Why do dead bodies always seem to get found when they're murdered? It's like a guy's jogging in the woods where nobody ever goes for some odd reason and he trips over a hand. The guy probably buried the body like 10 feet down and the earth just pushes it back because the body itself is communicating to the soil its intent. And its intent is to be found, to have closure for the people left behind. And this is why the blood would cry out to God in the Bible from the soil. It's like the soil itself is communicating with the above, and the above and the below are always in constant symbiotic communication. And there's this energy flow. So we also are part of that. So our consciousness, our intent, our thoughts are also being put into, I guess, what Healy would call I don't know, I guess he had many names for the ether, but most people would call it the ether.
yeah.
And if you're talking about a vacuum being the absence of ether, is that possible to create an artificial womb? Because a womb would also contain that substance that Keely was talking about.
Yeah.
Because where is this plant stuff coming from? Like, who's seeding every barren plot of dirt with grass? Nobody's out there seeding it. It's either blowing there or the earth itself is just. I brought these houseplants into my home And there, I have so many gnats coming out of the soil. There's no way they're all getting in here from the outside. It's impossible.
Yeah.
So it tells me that the soil itself is creating insects and it's creating all kinds of life. And some of those insects are designed to break down decaying and rotting dead things and recycle that energy back into the soil, because that soil is now taking in that information. Like if you were to put a seed under your tongue and then dig a hole with your hands and your feet and then spit the seed with your saliva into the hole, now
I've seen
you're
that. Yeah.
actually you're programming the seed and the soil to grow to most benefit your body, because your body is putting its information into the soil and letting it know what it needs. It's like at some point though, you see what's happening here. You see the energy transference and you understand intuitively what a plant will do for you, or what a plant, like if a plant would be poisonous. You can see what your opponent is going to do before they do it, because the energy, the thought, the intent would precede the action. And if you can see the thought or the thought form as energy and intuitively know what it means, they're going to strike with their left hand, or they're going to feint and then strike with their right. And you can see almost the thought that's happening preceding the action. And then you can move and counter. And there's so many other applications to being able to see energy and understand what's happening in a way that is beyond another person's conception, and
Yeah.
that you would be considered like a god.
Yeah. Like a couple things. I gotta write this stuff down so I can tie it all together. But I'll start with the idea of like the elements and synchronicity. I think, and like how I think electricity is the one of the four elements. It's the element of earth. And what's like the most important thing about electricity is that you're grounded, and the ground is the earth, right? So electricity is kind of like the element of it applies to the earth, and I think humans are meant to see the elements as there's only like five. There's fire, earth, wind, fire, water, and ether. But chemistry is like it's like a language for demons almost. Like it's a lower level language, and it doesn't mean that that it's worse or it's not like accurate. It just means it's like lower level. Like in computers, there's like you can go down to like the binary code or like a machine code, but or you're the human and you're like the operating system. Like you
The
don't even
lesser keys of Solomon.
yeah you don't even deal with the actual code. Um, but like from the demon's standpoint, it's like it governs like one little instruction or something, like one little process. But then if like say someone's playing a video game and the code is supposed to do something like Tetris, like from the demon standpoint, it would be uh, like if a demon was waking up, they would be like, why are all these bricks seem to be falling in this certain spot, like in Tetris, and they keep like lining up and then disappearing, and it's almost like someone's controlling the bricks. And from their point of view, I think that's kind of like what synchronicity is. It's like, what if when we're seeing synchronicity, it's really just someone playing the game from a higher level? I don't know. And then to tie that into uh, what you were getting into with intent, my other point is yeah, I've heard about guys that can actually do that, and they I don't know, it's kind of controversial to say, but I know there's this one guy. He was a sparring partner for Michael Moorer. His name is George Povicic, and Michael Moorer was the world heavyweight champion boxer for a few years until he lost to old George Foreman. When George Foreman came back, Michael Moorer is the guy he upset. and George was a sparring partner for him. And George has he rolled with like three of the Gracies in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and he's done like 20 different martial arts. He's like five black belts. He's done it for like 35 years. And he goes to meet this Russian guy, Vladimir Vasilev, and he says the the Russian dude made everyone he's ever fought rank amateur, right? Because the guy he's like fighting the guy was like trying to fight the mirror because he could read my intent and I couldn't do anything to him. It was like impossible to even touch him because he was reading. No, he knew what I was going to do before I thought about doing it because he was reading his intent. And to the like seeing the energy thing, I don't know if that guy can see energy. It's kind of different, but I've heard of a guy. His name's Jonathan. Uh, Kind of disappeared like 10 years ago, but he talks about having his veil dropped, and he's like, "Trust me, you'll know when the veil drops." And because he talks about like he can see entities, and he can see the energy, and he's like the TV is like all etheric, everything's etheric. He could see everything in etheric. I don't know. I also think that's why when we're kids, like why kids have bad vision, bad eye vision. I mean, it could be the food and the uh, the vaccines, but I think that's like a way for your for the realm or like your mind to protect you when you're a kid. That's why you get the bad vision when you're a kid. I don't think kids like why would a kid have bad vision? It's so weird to me. But I think it could be like a protection mechanism so that they don't see the veil because they're not ready for it yet. I don't know. But yeah, that's my couple points there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you could say that opening your third eye could allow you to see those energies, or taking certain substances could also achieve that effect. But there's also other things going on with like the pharmacological route, right? So now you're interacting with a plant. And so you're not going to have the same experience. The thing that I find interesting about like the Russian special military forces is that, yeah, their training is more psychological in the sense that they also utilize a lot of that Toltec dream stuff to program the unconscious, and they also utilize a lot of Eastern mysticism when it comes to
They all
like
and they also it's like the Soviets. They would have no problem just throwing you into a ring with a knife against a death row inmate who also has a knife, and you would fight to the death, and they would do that. Like that's some of the training that they would do, the Soviets. So I mean, they also had that going on too. So it's not normal training, basically.
Oh no, and it has to be pretty intense, I would say, especially if you're going to become a master. If you look at any kind of master, whether you want to call them a wizard or a sorcerer on one level, but maybe on one level everyone just saw them as a master of kung fu or whatever, like Bruce Lee, or the guy who trained Bruce Lee, Ip Man,
Yeah,
right? If you look at that guy, um, and you think about like what that guy was capable of doing, and then you understand how long it took him to get there, and what most of these guys tend to have in common is that they all understand that what they eat, the diet and the discipline of like their meditation or their physical movements, their practice, but also taking care of their bodies, and you know, just the contemplation of even sunlight and all of these things is all a part of their practice. So you know, they're not running around getting drunk and smoking and eating crappy food and then going out and, you know, performing these amazing feats.
I think a part of that
Because I would,
is belief. belief system.
I mean, belief, but also, there's a real interplay between what you're eating and how your body is processing that energy. Like when you get your energy up, your chi to a certain level, and you start raising the vibration of your energy itself to where, like they always depicted Moses having horns coming out of his head,
Really?
but
I
it's
didn't know that.
also, yeah, we were at a thrift store the other day, and there's a little statue of Moses sitting on something, and he has horns coming out. And you can find it. I mean, if you Google Moses horns, you'll see it. But it's also that crown of thorns, or the thousand points of light, or the thousand petaled lotus. This is where I think visible light actually emanates from the crown chakra, and that it actually looks like a crown
Or Halo.
or lights or horns or a halo coming out of the head. Yes. And so the saints themselves could have actually displayed this light, and that maybe that light is visible to some and not all. I don't know. But when they get to that state of consciousness, they're actually like, they don't, a lot of them could be breatharian in the sense that they didn't need to eat a lot of food.
Yeah,
They drank some water or ate some food, but they didn't need it because most of their sustenance came from mana, which I guess you could call it prana or chi, but being able to harness that energy to actually give your body nutrients from light instead of food, because now you're capable of achieving energy like plants do. Right? The sun is all the plant needs in water. So when you get to a state of consciousness where your body has been so finely tuned to energy, and you've worked on your chakras, and you've mastered the balance, the energies in your chakras, and now you're emitting a certain frequency of biophotons. This could also be seen as like the midichlorians in the Jedi's bloodstream,
Yeah, like
and then they do the amazing
I'm
stuff.
sorry. Yeah, like I guess I'll go. Like with the chakras and the
Oh,
breatharian.
hey, I think the live stream went down. Only
Did it?
1 hour allowed, somebody said. Yeah, but we're still recording, so
Yeah, still recording. So shit. I put it to six
yeah.
hours. I put it to 6 hours. What the hell? Not that we were gonna talk for 6 hours, but that's weird. I even signed up for Zoom. That's a pain in the ass. Um
Well,
but
as long as it's still recording
yeah.
somewhere, we can keep going.
All right. Yeah. But yeah, with the breatharian, um when they're not eating, right? And with the chakras, when your stomach doesn't have anything to do, like it doesn't have any doesn't have to like process anything, it's easier for the chakras to flow up through like the whole body, right? So by not eating,
Yeah.
fasting is kind of elevating the chakras, basically. That's what I think.
I think that's true because, yeah, I mean, the amount of energy it takes for you to digest food,
Yeah, digestion. Yeah.
that's why fasting always puts people into like higher states or altered states of consciousness.
Yeah, I always, I
Not
always,
always, but
I always had something. It kind of feels off that we eat other things. I don't know why. And I don't want to sound like a dirty hippie, but it feels like we shouldn't be eating other creatures. I don't know. Maybe it's just this. I tried asking like the creator or whatever, and the 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 message I felt like I got back was it's cycles. We're going through a cycle. That's why it's like this now. Because like even like predators, if predators exist and they're way more in tune with nature than humans are, and they eat other animals, then I think it is like a cycle thing. I don't know, but it always felt like off. I mean, I just had a burger, so I mean, it's not like it's bothering me that much, but it does feel off a little bit.
But certainly, I guess it's about energy. If you got like an animal consciousness, if you will, right? Like more of a survival consciousness,
Hmm.
then certainly like being a predator, like an eagle, is always seen as like a symbol of freedom, but it's a predator,
Yeah,
just like a lion is a predator, but he's the king of the jungle. So even though they're predators, they're still, if a predator didn't exist, what would be the impetus for the things that they prey upon to improve themselves
that's
or
true.
perish, right?
Yeah.
I think this gets into the whole
Well,
evolutionary idea of survival of the fittest, because energy is energy. Energy doesn't die, it
yeah.
just changes form. And what form is best for the energy to take? If it's constantly getting mauled by this other form of energy, wouldn't that energy want to evolve into some other type of form that doesn't get mauled by a beast?
I got a theory about mosquitoes, that mosquitoes aren't natural, or they are natural, but like they came into existence when people started doing the shooty thing, the Jackson started doing that, or they started like using needles. Then like to fix that, because it's like in your bloodstream, mosquitoes came into existence. Like it was a response to it. I don't know. That's what it seems
Well,
like.
when was the first one created? Because I remember hearing a story about how when the British were when they were building the Panama Canal, apparently so many people were dying from, I guess it was yellow fever,
Oh,
whatever the mosquito borne disease was down there.
I think that's all.
These British,
I don't know. I'm starting to think
uh,
that most of that like Zika and yellow fever and like what would they give the Indians, the chicken pox or smallpox? I think all that was really the I can't say the word. You know what I mean, right? The jabby jab.
yeah,
But yeah, but I
yeah. I
guess
mean,
that's why the
it could
mosquitoes
have
showed up.
been.
You know what I mean?
But they went to the natives that were down there, and I guess this was sometime in like the 1800s, maybe early 1900s, so maybe it was already around. But they asked them how come they didn't die from the same thing, and it was because they drank the tea made from a bark of a certain tree. And so they took this bark back with them, and they discovered that one of the main component that gave it its extreme bitterness was quinine. And so they isolated the quinine and were able to figure out that the quinine somehow counteracted whatever the mosquito was doing. So then they came out with quinine tablets, and then that kind of ended this hysteria over malaria, yellow fever. But I don't know about the mosquito, because they also blamed the mosquito. They blamed the mosquito for these certain diseases, but those diseases were also seen in Britain during a certain period of the Industrial Revolution, where they determined that it wasn't actually the mosquito causing the problem; it was some environmental pollutant.
I actually
So
saw. Oops, sorry. I keep interrupting
no,
you.
I mean it could be that the mosquito itself is the scapegoat or the fall guy.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what happened with ticks. Jennifer Daniels, she's got a whole episode on it. Dr. Jennifer Daniels. She she goes into like the old court case for how Lyme disease got matched to ticks, and it was because like a bunch of kids were dying in like Massachusetts. I gotta correct it. I'm probably not 100% telling the story right, but a bunch of kids were dying because of some like chemical plant or something, and they brought the lawyers in, and they like decided to attach it to a deer-born tick, and that's how they were getting Lyme disease. When like even the location where it was at, there are no deer. It was like such a sham, and yeah, so ticks have nothing to do with Lyme.
Well, wasn't
Lyme
there
disease.
some conspiracy about a military base that was located on an island? And I don't know if this was in Massachusetts or it was in Connecticut or somewhere around there, where they introduced this laboratory created tick that had this special new disease. So it could be that like that whole thing was just made up as a conspiracy to inject into the conversation about ticks, because clearly there's something going on. I heard I don't know who that guy is. He gained a popularity back in 2020. He's a doctor, like a virologist who was talking about terrain theory a lot.
Oh, Dr. Tom Cowan, I think.
Yeah.
He
So
has
I
me.
watched.
He had me thinking that cells aren't even real. Apparently, like he gets he got really into like the how they actually measure stuff, like how they actually measure like or how they actually like study the bacteria or whatever. And it's always like in a desiccated lab and like all these conditions to it. So the thing might not even look like that. That's what he was basically saying. So we might not even have cells. It could be something completely different.
I mean, if you think about it, most of the things that we've seen that are inside of our body are artists' renderings
Yeah.
or graphics that have been created, because you really can't see things that are that small. You can only hypothesize their existence based on the evidence that they exist, even though you can't see them, like ghosts or energy or whatever. It's like you may not be able to see it, but you can see the effect of its existence.
Yeah, like I think there's a certain magnification that we can see too. I think it's like 1,000 times smaller. But then like when you get into like the insides of the cell, where they say they have to use like an electron microscope, that's when it gets like it's all who knows what it looks like. Even though they say they know what it looks like, but it's really like it has a bunch of conditions to it. But like
And
with the regular light,
that's just what it looks like on this one level of reality too.
yeah, exactly. That's true. It goes into
I was
the whole synchronicity thing I was talking about. Like would like a heart cell start thinking like, hey, why are we pumping or making like you know what I mean? Like I feel like on that scale, I also yeah, I don't know where I'm going with that, but I also think on that scale, time and like space is completely like it's scalar. Like it matches whatever your size is. Like I think that's why everyone knows that a dog year is 7 years. I mean, yeah, one human year is 7 years for a dog. And if you look up the size of a dog in comparison to a human, on average, it's like 7 times smaller on average.
so
So
the
so
the
like
blood itself, the blood
size
itself,
size term is like the I don't know. Go ahead.
the blood itself is what is creating the body. Like the blood contains the DNA, and whether or not DNA looks the way it's presented, I would imagine that you can see DNA in an altered state of consciousness in a very similar fashion, right? You would experience it as this sort of spiral staircase or spiraling ladder of sorts. But those DNA being within the blood itself, and the blood coming from the earth, meaning that the red clay, the earth that was taken by the angel to create man, and then breathe life into. There's a story in the Islamic tradition that God actually sent angels to the earth, that the earth was a living being, and that God could not create man without getting this special clay from the earth, from the mother, the womb. And he sent 4 angels to go and retrieve this clay, and the earth informed the angels that God was not allowed to have it for the purpose of creating a man. And that if they were to take this clay, that clay would be cursed. And so 3 of the 4 angels declined, and they went back to God and they said, we're not doing it. But a 4th angel decided he was going to take the clay. And not only did he take the red clay, but he also took black clay and white clay. And out of these 3 colors, they made all of the races of man. And that clay was cursed with the curse of death, meaning from the dust you came, into the dust you shall return. So we cannot keep the body. The body belongs to the earth, and that is the blood. That is the heart isn't actually pumping the blood. The blood is actually being pumped through like pressure or force.
Yeah, I think
right?
it's a vacuum thing. Like vacuum cavitation. Like Keely.
Yeah, vacuum cavitation. There you go. And that's being caused by the vortex of plasma that our consciousness is actually generating in a field inside of our head, right? And so you have these 2 hemispheres of the brain, which are the physical representation of that toroidal donut, that plasma. But the energy that you cannot see is also creating that auric plasma donut around your body, that toroidal thing we call an aura. And so all of this is there, you just can't see it. So that vortex of energy is that creating that path of least resistance, where when neurons are fired like lightning going up, right? It's just, you're creating pathways when you practice certain movements. Like you posted that video about the guy practicing the 10,000 punches.
Yeah.
And it was just so profound that, doing that and meditating on the movement, and just it became so ingrained that he could do 10,000 punches in an hour, but he had this amazing strength and quickness and ability.
Yeah, because it was like he did it to the point of like insanity. Like, I think that's how there's like one of those like crouching tiger type dudes could have existed back in the day. Like I don't think anyone like that really could exist now. Maybe, I don't know, because of like how society is now. Like, imagine a world with no electronics, no telephone. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what would you do all day?
Well, think about how difficult.
I would train all day. That's what I would do.
When you get to a certain state where you can fly and you can do all of these things, and you're literally living in a different reality. You're living in another dimension of vibration. And so if you're in that, think about the challenge of being in this reality and then showing people your abilities when you could be off living eternally in another space where you don't have to deal with the physicality anymore, the limitations of human consciousness where it's at. Or you have such compassion that you do come here and you use those abilities to try to bring up the consciousness of humanity, because that's ultimately what the greater good is about. It's about that the law of one, right? It's not just me.
Exactly.
I am everybody.
The cup
So if I'm going to improve myself, then I'm
overflowing.
also going to improve. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that manga. It's a Japanese comic, Hunter x Hunter. But they have so many connections to real life. I think it's like I have this theory that you know how Japan is the guy who made Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto. His
Yeah.
name means Central Intelligence or something like that. So it's clearly Central Intelligence Agency, right? And I think that the CIA has been using Japan to put out information to elevate human consciousness. And I think like there's so many some of these these like manga like they're named with English words. Why would a Japanese person name their comic book with English words? I don't know. And then the whole story, Hunter x Hunter, I think it's about that breakaway civilization that runs everything, and they're called hunters, and they're like top 1,000 humans on Earth, where they're the ones that go to like they do like the archaeology, they find like the ancient ruins and stuff. They they're all like millionaires. They're like the John Galt's type people, and they all can use Aurora and see Aurora, and the entire like magic system of the comic. I could talk about this comic forever, but the entire magic system of the comic is basically contractual conditional beliefs systems. Like the on like an underworld level, there's a this group called the Phantom Troop that is run by a guy named Lucifer, and he has 12 uh, people that like he has 12 members of his group called the Spider, and they each like represent like a I don't know like a family. Like one dude is named Franklin, and he has a pyramid on his back, like the dollar, America. One and his powers is he shoots bullets out of his fingers, something like that. Like a American would definitely be like that. Um, then there's like a samurai dude, a I don't know. It's like the Illuminati family, basically, run by Lucifer. I think I don't know where I'm going with this, but they that has a ton of connections to real life. Like even to the point that it has something called like the Big Five or something, and they have a treaty where they can't venture outside of their realm to pass the ice wall to the dark continent, they call it. Every country has a treaty that they can't do it because every time humanity has tried to do it, and they showed like pictures of like Egyptian hieroglyphs and stuff. People that did it in the past, some like calamity came to Earth. That's why there's a treaty that we can't go past Antarctica, or a calamity would happen maybe. And then like you have to like do all these conditions to get permission to go through the ice wall. And I think that's what's happening right now in real life. Like people are starting to like figure this out, and they want to go past the ice wall, but you need permission. You need to like you need to be qualified. You need to have your basically we're not we got to get spiritually ready to do it. I think that's where I want to go with it. But I don't know. I could talk about that comic forever. But yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things in these. It's not just that one. There's several of them, but
Yeah, there's a bunch.
It's fascinating. When I went to the bookstore, and I hadn't been to like a bookstore not I don't know, about a year or so, but Barnes and Noble or one of those types of bookstores, they didn't typically have an entire section of the store, not just a shelf, but they had 10 or 12 shelves dedicated to manga.
Yeah, it's
They
about
had one tiny shelf of graphic novels, and everything else was wall to wall manga. And they're always packed with girls that have like pink or green or blue hair.
yeah.
And it's fascinating that most of these mangas are consumed by American readers versus like Japanese readers.
I looked it up, like what the highest selling American comic book it ever was. I forget what it was, but it was like 70 million copies sold, something like that. This, the most famous Japanese manga, it's called One Piece. It's about going to Rufus Negra and going down, like that's literally what it's about. Going to the North Pole, to Mount Meru, and going to other realms. That's basically what it's about. I mean, they're all pirates. It's about pirate. Like they're every you have to do it as like a pirate because the government won't give you permission to do it. Anyway, they had 500 million copies sold. 500 million, and it no one actually buys this comic book. Everyone that I know reads it online for free. There's all kinds of websites you can read this online for free. So there's so many people I think that read this. Uh, I don't know. I think the main reason why is because it's not woke and like it has good like it has heart to it. Like I feel like comic books no they don't have heart to them anymore. Like that's what's missing in like TV shows and like all modern TV shows and whatnot. It doesn't have like heart. But these Japanese comics they do. I don't know. I think that's why people are drawn to it, especially children. I'm like I remember when I was like 6 or something, 6 or 7, when I just started playing football as a kid. I would hide under my parents' bed to watch Dragon Ball Z just because I was obsessed with it when I was a kid. Like those Japanese shows are like really addicting for kids, and it actually teaches pretty good values, even though it's like kind of weird 'cause with the Japanese perverts and whatnot. But I don't know.
I had the opposite when I was a kid, and I remember when Japanese animation was coming into American markets. Right around the time it came in, I guess I'm probably a little bit older than you, so maybe I was at an age where I wasn't into cartoons anymore, really.
Hmm.
So when Japanime, as they would call it back then, came in,
I can see that.
I always thought it was just irritating.
Yeah, no,
Like,
like
why do the characters always talk like this?
yeah,
And the way they presented Japanese culture was like this big clown show joke where
yeah,
everyone's like little tiny children with little tiny backpacks made out of pleather,
yeah,
and they everyone giggled, and it was silly and giggly and bright and cuddly like stuffed animals for adults. And
yeah.
I thought this is the most bizarre shit I have ever seen. So I always stayed away from the the
Yeah,
Japanese.
I was like the only one out of my friends that ever got into any of this shit. Like my friends would probably call me FAG if they knew. Uh, like I watched this. I mean, who cares? No, but like yeah, none of them. I was like one of the only people that ever got into it, I guess. And the first one that I got into was the Dragon Ball. It's about a dude that he has spiky hair. His hair goes spiky when his aurora goes up, and he's like a martial artist. I don't know. And if you think about it, when you get the prickly goosebumps, what happens? Your hair spikes up, right? And I don't know if you've ever gotten the prickly goosebumps in a like sporting event or like when you're working out or running or something.
Oh
I
yeah,
I always
it's
like
a
go
energy.
wait, yeah, it's just like a surge energy. Like you exceed your limits almost. So it kind of would. If you and if you look at cats, like when there's cat videos of cats like like petrifying alligators, like giant alligators, because the cat will like spike up its hair, like prickly goosebumps, and the alligator would like sprint away. And it's like I think it's like a aurora spike type thing. That's why you can like break your limits.
Well, I know when I'm doing certain breath work that after a pretty short period of time, especially if it's like 5 seconds, if I'm doing 5 second breaths, I start to feel tingly in my extremities. And then I can start to feel like a fuzzy, like a buzzing over my head, but not on my head. It's like beyond. So I can actually start feeling or sensing my sense of self beyond my head. And it's weird because I can feel like a halo or an auric field in front of me or over my head that's above my hair. So I can already feel like this charge that's building through the breath as I'm doing it. So I think I felt sometimes you hit. I don't know if the hairs stand up, but you certainly feel like the tinglies, like the
Yeah.
up the
Like little prickly needles, kind of.
yeah. So to me, it's a lot about raising up the energy. And maybe it has to do with the chakras too, because you never know what's happening in a chakra, especially if you're not even acknowledging that those things exist. Like
Yeah.
there's so many people who
What do you think
have these.
about that? Do you think they exist? Do you think it's like a thing, or do you think it's kind of woo woo? The chakra
I
stuff.
think they exist because many people have reported actually seeing them, and that they are in fact a colored, like swirling vortex,
I've actually
basically.
shit. Maybe it was the chakra. I I sometimes feel it when I'm on a computer for a while, and then I'll get like my shoulders get really heavy, so it feels like something weighing me down, and it's like a spiral. It's also like a spiraling energy that goes to my solar plexus, and then I I don't really smoke, but my brother kind of does, I guess. I don't know if I should say that, but he a
Oh,
while
not
ago,
sick talking.
yeah, a while ago I smoked, and I could feel the energy so strongly, the spiraling energy coming. It went through my head, down my spine, into my solar plexus, down below that, and then it would like like it was so strong I could feel my head like wobbling to go along with the spiral. And there's definitely, I think there's something to it. I don't know.
So here's the thing that I've come to realize: all of these esoteric secret societies, the big secrets that they're actually teaching people in these things, it's typically about how the human body works,
Yeah,
physiology, and energy, and how energy works, and also how so it's body, mind, and spirit, or however you want to look at this. There's these three components. It focuses on health and diet and breath work, meditation, visualization, and dreaming, and then movement, exercise, dance, and certain body postures, mudras, yoga. All of these things combine together into a practice that then once you have like deeper understanding of how energy works and how the body channels energy and where energy comes in and goes out, and how to balance the energy in a chakra, right? Because sometimes it's about activating a chakra, but it's also about keeping it balanced, because when the energy is out of balance within a center of the body, that's what's creating distortion and disease.
a vacuum.
So the theory is that because everything is energy, that all disease is a product of distorted energy that's not in harmony or in balance. So the idea that music or a harmonious frequency can heal, and a distorted frequency can destroy or cause disease and decay.
That's what Keely did.
And that's what Keely was talking about.
Yep.
And so he was in the esoteric schools. So it's not like they're teaching you secrets like most people think of secrets, like, oh, Satan is real and you just got to sell your soul to him and he'll give you like that. None of that's real. There is no Satan looking for your soul. Like, that's just not a thing that these people really talk about, because that's not what they understand. They understand that you are energy, that all is one, all is self. And then they learn how to channel and harvest energy, and then how to use it, because a lot of this has to do with tantra and the sexual regenerative energies being channeled up the spine, up through the chakras, instead of into an orgasm, right? Or an ejaculation. The orgasm would implode, meaning you have implosion or coherence of a wave. And that's what's causing a cascading effect up the chakras, versus an explosion, which is just a release of energy. And then boom, now you're all out of qi, right? Or jing. The Chinese refer to it as jing. And this jing can be built back up, right? And you can do that through certain exercise, but you can also do it through certain supplements, right? Through alchemy, you can create tinctures that will help revitalize the body's energy. So a lot of the alchemists, what they were really doing with this elixir, right, is prolonging their life so that they could have more time to perfect their energy, so that they could create a soul for themselves to survive death with memory, with their sense of self and their memory.
Do you listen to Old World Florida? Have you heard of that guy?
I don't think I have.
He's been on he went on Owen Benjamin one show. I don't know if you watch him, but it's not. But he has his whole thing is like, he thinks Florida is the Garden of Eden. I don't know, it makes a pretty good case for it. But the most interesting thing I heard him talk about was how the concept of a family tree. Why is it called a family tree? Like, his theory is that people used to have a actual tree from their family, and when they died, they buried them under the tree or by the tree, and then the tree would soak in the nutrients. Then the leaves would fall, and then they would make tea from the leaves or something of their family, and then it would like cycle back into the family, so that when they died, because of the family tree, they would come back into a body and remember everything from before, because of this cycle through the lineage. I don't know. It's kind of
I think a lot of cultures, I think, had similar types of rituals. I mean, if you look at South America and the Day of the Dead and the ancestor worship,
what is the Day
Shintoism, and I mean, it's just a celebration of the ancestors,
okay,
right? Those who have passed. But you keep the ancestor alive perpetually in eternity through the memories, right, that you carry forward, and the honoring of that individuated part of you, because you are your ancestors, but you're also gaining or interacting with the ancestors. It was believed that the ancestors are the ones that show you the past and the future, since past, present, and future are happening simultaneously, that your ancestors are not just those who have died, but those who haven't been born yet. And that when you go into a certain state of consciousness, and some of these rituals were designed to help put you in that through helping to, I guess, build the intent of what you're doing, because a lot of this is happening in the unconscious or the dream world. So when you're lucid dreaming, you're actually going and meeting the ancestors, and they're showing you the scrolls and the histories, and you're traveling through time And because you're lucid, now you're in control within the dream. So you're actually moving through a space that's real, and you're accessing information that's typically cut off because you're not lucid. So you're not, it's just like when you're in a waking life and you have people that you're calling NPCs.
Yeah.
It's not they don't have a soul or anything or no consciousness. It's that their consciousness is vibrating at a certain frequency
Yeah.
that is actually below like a sentient awareness. So their unconscious is influencing them, but they are unaware that that is happening. Whereas when you are aware or conscious of the unconscious influence in your daily reality, and you've been programming your unconscious through these mechanisms of meditation, visualization, movement, ceremony, ritual, and your intent is placed within the unconscious, that the unconscious then allows you to interact with the waking world as if it was also the dream, because now you can see both of those things simultaneously.
Yeah, it's like
And
synchronicities.
yeah, so I guess I'm an NPC when it comes to dreaming lucidly.
Yeah,
I still haven't gotten there yet.
I was about to ask, have you ever done it? I think I only did it once ever, and I didn't mean to do it. It's like, have you ever tried to punch someone in a dream? It's like impossible.
No.
And I've asked people about this, and they all say no, they can't punch someone. It's like, or they like when if I ever punch someone in my dream, uh, it like feels like I'm hitting like I only hit like a pillow or something. Like there's no force to it. It's really weird. And I've had this happen tons of times in dreams. But the one time
I've been in a dream.
Yeah, sorry.
I've been in a dream where I was lucid, but I couldn't move. I was being attacked.
Okay.
It wasn't like being punched. It was more like I was the energy. It manifested as like a person that looked familiar to me, right?
Was
so
it heavy?
For whatever reason,
did it feel heavy?
Yeah, it was really heavy.
Yeah, I felt that too.
Yeah, so it presented it Bill Nye, the science guy.
And I don't like.
But in the dream, he was going to rape me, but I couldn't fight back. I was paralyzed. So
yeah.
for whatever reason, I didn't want this to happen. But my body in the dream, I couldn't control it. I wasn't fully lucid. And then I popped back into waking reality.
Yeah.
Because if I had been able to actually move or be lucid in the dream, I could have actually just changed the energy. I could have transmuted the energy of Bill Nye, which is, what was it? It was like this dark predatory energy. So I was in a space, energy saw me. It saw that I was not capable of defending myself because it already saw where my energy was at coming into that space. And it immediately wanted to feed off of me. And I was like, whoop, see ya.
I've had that happen a bunch of times, actually. But the one time I've ever felt lucid in a dream, I was able to actually fight back against something. It was like a zombie. It wasn't I guess it was like, yeah, it was like a zombie apocalypse. They weren't zombies. They were just people. And they had weapons. But like it was like that movie Kingsman. You ever see that movie?
Yes.
Where at the end where they like turn on that frequency and everyone starts fighting or whatever. It was like that.
Yeah.
I wasn't affected by it for some reason. And I'm hiding, and then I decide, all right, well, I'm just gonna go out and try to fight or whatever. And this dude runs at me with a sword. And I remember like I was lucid at that time. And it felt like really calm. And when he like tried to hit me with the sword, I like jumped back to like dodge it or whatever, like like you normally would, right? And then I remember thinking, no, stay calm, relax. And instead of trying to like I don't know, run away kind of. And then he swang again, and I like stepped into it and like flipped the guy and took the sword, and then was able to slice him. And I've never ever been able to harm anyone in a dream. It's really weird. Like I've asked tons of people about this. They can't harm someone in a dream. It's like it's like the haunted house almost. Like
Well,
you can't harm the people trying to scare you because you gave consent at the beginning, right?
that's
That's kind
probably
of
because if you really think about that, there is no other person
yeah,
attacking. There's nobody but you.
yeah, exactly.
But it's projections of yourself, aspects of yourself. There's fear that you're projecting, there's anger, right? And so all of these things can come after you, like where everybody turns on you in the Matrix, right? Once you start becoming aware, then
I've had
everything's like coming after you.
I've had a
Um,
PowerPoint put into my head one time. Really weird. It was like felt like someone implanted it into my head. I don't know, it was odd. It
my
was like a
wife had a dream that where somebody was trying to put something into her head. It was like a metal object. They were like trying to saw it into or drill it into her skull, and then she woke up.
that's
So
weird.
I, I think what's happening is when you're not. So the other thing is people. I think people do lucid dream. I'm remembering now. I've had a dream, several dreams where I've flown or
Oh
levitated,
yeah, me too.
and I
But it's
remember surprised that I could fly, but then really going with it and trying to direct myself where I'm going to fly to, and then discovering these buildings somewhere. And then this helicopter came, and all of this stuff is happening.
did you
And I
notice
felt pretty lucid.
did you notice that when as soon I've had that too, the flying thing, and but as soon as I think about the fact that I'm flying or that I try to fly, I can't fly. It was like I had to be I had to feel it. You know what I mean? Like I couldn't think about it. If I did, then I would go to that. I would like land. I couldn't fly anymore. I noticed that with have you experienced anything like that? Like where like if you actually think about it in the dream, or if you try to do it in in the dream, and you're not just like being the flight. I don't know how else to explain that, I guess. But have
Yeah,
you ever
I
had
think
anything
it's
like that?
yeah. If you tell yourself I can fly, and then you go into a dream and you say like I can fly, and then you try to do it. I've had a dream where I was trying to levitate
Yeah,
and I could.
trying. It seems to be like the thing that doesn't let you do it.
But once you're already in the dream and you're flying, and then you become aware of the fact that you're flying, and you can feel the exhilaration of being in the air and moving and flying, and then you are, like you said, you become the flying. You're
Yeah, right.
just directing yourself where you want to go. There's no doubt in your mind that you can actually fly because you're flying. And
Yeah.
then you get cocky, and I started like I would zoom up really really high, and then I get this rush and exhilaration, and then I would float down really really slowly, or I would imagine that I was flying alongside of an airplane, and that I was, going so fast, and then I could feel the exhilaration. So, the feeling itself is generating the chemicals. And this is something that was found that even when somebody is given a placebo, right? Why does a placebo work? Because the person themselves is actually generating the necessary chemistry in the body to produce the feeling of whatever it is, whether it's being healed
I
or of fear or of weightlessness or whatever it is.
I
Like
just
it's
I,
all a chemical.
sorry. I just got a book um to read. It's called "Feeling is the Secret" by Neville Goddard, and I haven't read it yet, but I think I gotta read that now because
Yeah, let me know if it discusses that, because I think there's truth to that. That feeling is really where consciousness is. Like, if you had to say what is the essence of beingness or
Kind of like
consciousness,
it's kind of like intent almost. Not really. I don't know. It's similar.
well, if you were to think, how would I experience something outside of a physical construct? I don't have a body, but yet I can feel something. When I'm in a dream, I don't have my body is laying in bed. My consciousness is unbridled and unchained from the flesh. Where am I? I don't know where this place actually exists in space time, but there are no laws here that govern anything, and yet there are. Things look about the same, and yet the scene can change in an instant, and I'm somewhere else. And I don't even notice that we just shifted from one place to another and one dream into another dream. How seamless it is, the shifting of the form that the energy takes, because it's under the direction of the consciousness, and the feedback of the experience is the feeling, the sensation of joy or terror or passion or whatever it is,
Yeah.
right?
I
You can
I
get even like micro emotions.
I agree. Uh, the other thing I wanted to say about dreaming, um, I was talking. I was in a forum talking to this guy from Africa, and we were talking about like aurora type stuff, and he brought up this thing called the gate of death, where you can enter it in dreams or in real life if you're in like a life or death situation, and it's the way to pass the gate of death is you have to it's like the jump program in the Matrix. Like you have to accept death fully, and then you go into another. I don't know. You pass the gate, and like every time I'm in a dream, I've only had this happen once. But whenever I die in a dream, I usually just wake up. Like if I'm falling from somewhere, and I hit like I'll wake up while I'm falling or whatever. But one time I didn't. I accepted the death, and in the dream I went into that room that in the Matrix, the room that they go to like load up all their guns, that white room.
The
I went,
waiting room.
yeah, I went into that room, and then someone was there, and they said, "Congratulations," or something like that. But we're not authorized to let you go through this section yet, so you have to go back. And then I went back into the dream. It was weird. It was the weird. It was the weirdest dream. But I think there's something to the whole uh, gated death. And that the African dude I was talking to, he um he was saying that there's a that Christianity is kind of like he says it's the white man's version of like how to pass the gate of death. Like if you think about Jesus dying on the cross and all that, it's you have to pass the gate of death to get to the next level or whatever. That's what it seems like.
Yeah, you got to go through. So there's a couple things. There's something called the dweller at the threshold, right? Or the guardian of the gate.
Yeah.
It's basically a form that energy takes that guards a passage within your own consciousness from entering into other spaces, right? Because you have to prepare to pass through this door. And a lot of what you're saying is it's about overcoming the fear of death. And that once you embrace death, then you're able to pass through. And then there's another place that's referred to as the waiting room. And then there's a couple other spaces. And people talk about this too in conjunction with DMT trips. I think there was a guy that mapped out all of these different spaces that people on DMT had reported experiencing. And then he put them, he basically came up with these categories of what to name them, but they're also based on occult traditions and tribal traditions and dreaming and other such things. So it's in the dream space that most of this is actually happening. A lot of the occult is going on in the dream world, right? The adepts and the sorcerers, they're not. Yeah, I mean they're in the dream space. So when Neo wakes up and he's basically he defeats the dweller at the threshold, and then he gets to pass into Zion, or he comes out of his gelatinous pod, right? And now he sees what reality really is. He awakens from the dream, or the illusion is pulled off of his eyes, and he can see. So
I just was at like a week ago. I was at Mount Zion, Pennsylvania. How's that? But first, I went to Punxsutawney. What was the story with the Punxsutawney? It was named after the sorcerer hermit.
So yeah, Punxsutawney, I guess, meant land of the sandfly,
Yeah, yeah.
place of the biting fly, and I guess it had to do with like all of these black flies and mosquitoes because it was a swampy area. But the story was that there was a sorcerer that lived there that was tormenting not the settlers but the indigenous people. So why he was doing that and why in that particular spot, I don't know. The swamp. They say that when they killed him, he actually didn't die, but he became all of these biting insects and to continue to terrorize people that were invading that space. And I guess when they drained the swamps, the insects or the curse vanished with it, meaning like energetically that sorcerer could no longer inhabit that form in that place because the conditions to meet that had to be met for him to be a biting insect were gone, meaning like the swamp. So maybe he moved to another space, maybe he moved into another form and continues to terrorize Punxsutawney. Maybe he is Phil.
Oh my God. Check this out. I was born on February 1st, and there's a astrological date. I think they call it the Imbolc, Imbolc, and it falls on either February 1st or February 2nd, and it's the time between the winter solstice and the spring equinox. And Punxsutawney Phil, my family has a tradition where the firstborn son of the firstborn son names their kid after the grandfather. So like two names end up repeating, and the two names are Pasquale and Philip. And I was born on like the same day as Punxsutawney Phil. My dad's name is Phil, and my name is Pasquale, which means Easter, which means spring equinox. So that's why I started my little journey um, during a full moon and the spring equinox. And I went to Punxsutawney. I don't know why, it just felt right. And that was my first stop. And Mount Zion's like right around it.
I know that Punxsutawney is not very far from the western branch of the Susquehanna River. And
it did feel weird.
Yeah.
The town did kind of feel off. I don't know why.
If you look at the history, all of these little towns that seem so
like think about Groundhog Day. Groundhog Day is such a weird, what is that? You know what I mean? Like
it's probably the Imbolc just under a different guise. I mean, it's to me, I always associated it with the movie with Bill Murray.
Yeah, kind of. I agree.
That had more to do with what is this thing about the groundhog and it's seeing its shadow? First of all, like, what determines whether a groundhog sees its shadow? Is the sun out?
Yeah.
I mean, is it going to see it? Are you seeing your shadow? Do we need a groundhog for this whole thing? Like, what?
Definitely some kind of mass symbolism going on there. I don't know.
And they proved that like other animals have been way more accurate than Punxsutawney Phil. And there's multiple groundhogs in multiple states that are also given weird names and have had this tradition of doing what Punxsutawney Phil does.
There's like
The
some
only
kind of order too. They have like a like fraternity order, a certain name
Yeah,
that does it too. I forget the name of the actual order though. But yeah, it's so weird. Same with like Philadelphia does the Mummers Parade every year. Matt from Quantum Conscious went through it. Like that's such an odd freaking thing to do. Like grown men. Like I know dudes that would do this every single year. Grown men. They're like they're like bookies, and they would go out and dress in these crazy uniforms and march through Philadelphia in the Mummers Parade and like do these weird dances. They'd like rehearse for it, everything. I mean, they were drinking the whole time, but like, uh, but why were they even doing it? That's such a weird thing, right? I don't know. We have so many
well, it's
weird traditions like that.
all all the Groundhog's Day stuff, even in the movie, the way it's presented, which I would imagine that, the real festival is something similar to that, but it seems very Masonic.
Yeah, definitely.
You probably have like your Masonic lodge there in Punxsutawney that a lot of the people that are involved, there's only like 2 or 3 people that are involved in the whole ceremony.
It's a nice town.
So I would imagine that, there's a lodge behind it.
It was a pretty like it was a beautiful town, but it was a little too mountainous for me. Like there's like that was the I'm in Kentucky now, and Kentucky is like more like rolling hills kind of, and Punxsutawney was like, yeah, you're in the mountains, and it was like I could feel it in my chest that I was like in the higher elevation and whatnot. So I'm actually like looking at land too when I'm doing this little trip, and Punxsutawney had some spots of like acreage, like a lot of acres for like I don't know, like it was like 400, 500K. I can't afford that, but I wanted to check them out anyway because I think I don't know. I got some crypto investments, but
We
anyway, they yeah, they had some. It was a nice area, but it did feel like off. I don't know. There was something. I felt the day I got there too. I felt immense dread, and I watched Benjamin episode that night, and the first thing he says is, I'm just feeling off today. I feel like dread. There was something to it. I don't know, something going on there. But
we went to recently in no, it's not West, it's in Virginia. So it's it's this place called Shenandoah, and it's up in the mountains. It's at the northern part of the Blue Ridge Mountains in Virginia, right before you go into West Virginia. And it's up on the mountain, and apparently there's this huge mansion up there, a Gilded Age mansion built by a millionaire philanthropist from Richmond, Virginia, back during the late 1800s. He built this massive mansion. He bought 600 acres on top of this. He bought basically the top of this mountain. And he built this massive estate. And then he died shortly after. And so the wife inherited the estate. And then people were coming there. They built a country club. All of these hotels opened up. There was a Holiday Inn that was like really bustling. It had a Howard Johnson's restaurant just below it. And people were flocking there, like politicians and wealthy tycoons were going there to vacation. And then in the 1960s, No, it was 1958 or 1968. I don't know the exact year, but Walter Russell actually leased the place for 50 years to start his the University of Philosophy and Science or something like that, the Institute of.
I've heard of that place, actually.
Anyway, they were operating. Yeah, they published a lot of his work. I just started reading some of his stuff recently, and we went there to check the place out, which of course it's closed. And there was a chain, you couldn't get into the drive. And so we were kind of bummed out. I wanted to see the grounds. But we drove back down the mountain, and there was this old, what looked like a hotel that had been abandoned. So we pulled into this giant parking lot, and sure enough, it was a motel or a hotel that had been abandoned, and windows were smashed out. There was stuff in rooms that was just piled up almost to the ceiling. Paperwork, old spreadsheets with printer paper that's green and white striped with the perforated edges, right? And binders. This was like sales reports and stuff from the 80s piled in rooms. There was broken glass and spray paint everywhere, but it had this amazing view of the valley down below. I guess during the 70s, they built this interstate and it killed the entire mountain. One guy owns the 600 acres atop that mountain, and he refuses. He also owns the mansion, and he does private tours, but he refuses to tear down this Holiday Inn where apparently people are, getting rooms and still like squatting up at till 2019. They were officially a hotel that was taking reservations, but I guess between 2019 and now, it's completely gone, and so it's just got vagrants living in it. And it was like the energy was crazy up there. All of the stores. There were several. If you go back down the mountain, it kind of winds down below the hotel. There's more abandoned businesses, the same stuff, spray paint, smashed out windows. The guy who owns it has denied any offers that were well above market to sell the property because he said it would be like selling one of my children. So what did this multimillionaire philanthropist know about this mountain and its energy? Why did he build a mansion there? Why did the guy who currently owns it let it all go to shit and doesn't care about revitalizing this town because he doesn't want to lose control of this land?
Yeah. I
So I wonder
I heard
if
a lot about like the
Punxsutawney is.
ley lines. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Lancaster, and all over Pennsylvania, Kentucky, West Virginia, Virginia. There are these little towns and spots. Even Tennessee.
The Ozarks seem like they got some energy going there. Like Oz.
Yeah, there's all kinds of.
Oz, the Wizard of Oz. I don't know. Or like Ark, like Noah's Ark. That seems like where people are going right now. To
Williamsburg or Williams, Kentucky.
like I went to Ohio. I went to Akron, Columbus, and this town called. I just pulled off because the town's name was so kind of gave me vibes. It's called Mogador. That sounds like the villain from Ghostbusters or something. So I was like, I'm definitely going to this town. And I went in there, and the the weirdest thing about the town was it had every single house had either Lawler for mayor, or the other name was Bedit, Bidet for mayor. And like every single house had a sign. Lawler versus Bidet. Like it was crazy. Like they were like so pumped about these two guys in this weird town. And I don't know. That's that mayoral election race is going to be It's gonna be nuts. But yeah, there's something weird about Mogador. I feel like there's so many towns like this in America. I think that old world Florida guy and that archivist guy that I got um the story about the old like giant bones and stuff. They're both presenting that we're actually the old world.
You
Amer-
mentioned
America's
Florida.
the old world.
Somebody just somebody just mentioned recently that there's apparently like a giant buried underneath Florida, or like a, I don't know, some type of a giant is buried underneath Florida.
Dude, there's that archivist guy. He goes through old newspaper articles from like the 1800s, 1890s, right around there, right when Keely and all those guys. But they have these newspaper articles. He's got hundreds, maybe thousands of articles that talk about giant human bones or giant horses, like 50-foot tall horses being found, the bones of it. And then almost every single time the Smithsonian gets called in, and you never hear about it. I've been actually in contact with the Smithsonian, and they're acting really weird about that, because one of the articles is 120-foot long winged dragon that they found in Salina Canyon, Utah, and the Smithsonian was called in. And I actually contacted the Smithsonian about it, and uh, they're acting really weird, shady. They won't get back to me. It's the Department of Paleobiology at the Smithsonian. So I think there's something to it, and I think
That's probably what this whole dinosaur thing was really all about. If you
yeah,
think
like
about,
my
they
thought,
uncovered these giant armadillos apparently just recently. Like they're
yeah,
massive. They're so big. They're bigger than human beings. Yeah, they just uncovered them. Like there was like a couple of them all together in like a dried up riverbed or something that had been buried over. I forget where this was at, but this was just recently I saw this. So it makes sense that there were creatures that were much larger, and it could have been dragons.
yeah,
But let's say dinosaurs are dragon bones, just sort of fragments of dragon bones that have been fictionalized in dinosaurs, right? Because dragons are fantasy, but dinosaurs are real, kids.
yeah, like my town, we're right next to my town in New Jersey, Haddonfield, New Jersey. It's the town where the first dinosaur bones were found, and I think I even brought it up in one of my videos. You walk up to the plaque of the thing, and the entire it's like a weird looking dinosaur, and they only had one bone from his head, from his skull. It was like a little tiny piece of his skull, and they formed this whole like dinosaur looking skull. Like it's such a fake bullshit. It was so obvious, but they won't talk about giant bones. They won't talk about the dragon bones. They won't talk about anything like that, because I think it goes against their little narrative, I think. But whatever.
Was this is this Haddonfield in Camden County?
Yep. That's
Yeah, so that was 1858. The Hadrosaurus
yeah.
Folk. That was William Parker Folk. So he, I guess he named it after himself. I remember looking into William Parker Folk guy. He was a member of the Academy of Sciences, and I think he was a member of the Royal Academy.
Isn't that the bad guy in Atlas Shrugged? It's the Science Institute or something like that.
Yeah, it's some big government
Yeah.
institute. Yeah.
Smithsonian Institute.
It's like all of them are just there in order to keep reality mundane, and anything tries to
Groundhog Day.
raise the conscious awareness. It just suppresses it, or it just completely calls it a hoax, or it creates its own hoax to cover up the truth, which is even more weird because, okay, dinosaurs are a myth. Or, I mean, dragons are a myth, but dinosaurs are real.
Yeah, right.
Like, wait, what? Why would reality create the dinosaur? but not the dragon.
Yeah.
And why is there
Yeah.
all this lore about dragons, but nothing about a dinosaur?
Yeah, you would think the Bible would talk about dinosaurs, right?
Well, they don't even talk about dragons in the Bible either.
Don't
But
they? Don't they? Aren't no, they don't. I guess I never actually read the Bible. I only read one chapter of the Bible. This book
the
of
Leviathan
Ezekiel.
is, yeah, I think most of the stuff in the Bible, though, if you look at it, it's you have to read it esoterically, meaning that all of these physical things are not actually what they're talking about. That it's all different concepts and ideas about the self or the consciousness.
I think it's the Word of God, but God didn't write the Bible. Let's clear that up. But like it's in the way that you read it at the certain time you're reading it, and for who you are and what where you're at, it'll speak to you as if it's like a totally different uh, meaning than what a normal like when a normal person reads that passage. I think that in that way, it's kind of like the Word of God or whatever. But
I think Christians say that it's divinely inspired,
yeah,
meaning that it was written by God in that God transmitted the information to a person who wrote it down. Well, what's the difference between that and automatic writing or channeling
yeah,
or any of the number of things that people have put out in the public through publishing that were channeled from somewhere else? How about how many different inventions that shaped the course of history have we had that came from somebody channeling something? Whether it's flying saucers, or it's the steam engine, or it's a quantum computer, or a hadron collider.
didn't
People don't
Tesla?
think of this without being in contact with some other higher intelligence, whether it's their higher self or whether they perceive it that way or not, or it's God, or it's an angel, or a demon, whatever name you want to call it, right? Because if all is self, then God did write the Bible because, well, the Bible was written by somebody
Yeah,
or different people. And if even if a panda bear wrote the Bible, it would still be written by God because
yeah, that's true.
God is all. But what does that mean? When we think of each other as individuals and separate from everything else, well, what is God? If God is just an invisible force that is within all things, then being divinely inspired would mean that you would have to tap into the God within you in order to channel inspired scripture, like prophets or people that had visions, saints, people who would, lay out in a field and things would just come to them, or they would be taken up into a vision and shown all of this stuff. And then they would write it all down. I mean, that's pretty much what Enoch just came out and said. I was taken by an angel and shown all this stuff, and here's what he showed me.
Well,
Boom.
I just
Moses, God told me all this shit. Here it is. Boom.
yeah, I just opened the Bible because I'm in a hotel room and came to the book of Ezekiel. That I randomly opened, and that's the only book I've ever read in the Bible. It's the book of Ezekiel. Have you ever read that book? It's actually pretty kind of interesting. From what
Oh,
I
yeah.
have you read that or no?
Yeah. Ezekiel's wheel and the vision
Yeah,
of the seraphim and the
it sounds
cherubim.
it sounds like he was shown by like other entities that there were these grabblers hidden in the mountain or something that were messing with kids. And so they go in there, the angels or whatever kill the people, and then they tell Ezekiel that we're gonna do this to the town next door or whatever. And you go down and point out which people are actually good. And but the most interesting thing about it was this one dude. Like they all have like this shiny metal like armor almost, like their clothing. But there was one guy, and the description of the guy, he had a clipboard, and It sounds like he was wearing a suit. I want to know who that guy is. You know what I mean? Who was that guy?
You know, if you can remember the chapter in Ezekiel, I need to go back and read. It's been so long since I've read any of the Old Testament.
I think it's on this page. I would let me see.
What are the chances? I got to actually run, man. I got to go eat.
Yeah, it's been too long.
It's been going about 2.5 hours.
Yeah, we could probably talk for 6 hours, but it's probably a good time to cut off. You're right.
But thank you for having me and doing this. This was awesome.
Yeah, anytime. It's a lot of fun.
I've been really enjoying your videos that you've been doing and this sort of documenting the travel that you're on, and I really like how you're choosing to do this at a certain point in time, kind of lining it up with different like a moon and
I'm getting time of astrology, man. It seems that I'm actually getting my chart read by Christopher Gardner currently.
Well, the stuff that you were doing by going out in the woods naked, overnight, and like
freaking psycho.
I just feel like the things that you're looking into and the connections that you're making, they're so like right on with what I'm looking at in different places, and it's all lining up to kind of be saying the same thing. Like I think we're both searching for the same kind of thing in our own different ways, and I just love being able to come together and share our experiences and the things that we've kind of come up with, and it's awesome, man. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for doing the call on my stream. But I got a bunch of other dudes that don't really have channels. I mean, you have a channel, so I'm not saying that. But I know a bunch of other really interesting dudes that don't have channels, but I want to bring on the stream, try to like introduce them to like the consciousness, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've been doing that on my stream. I've been having some people on. Some of them have their own channel, but all of them are just, right now, it's been a bunch of musicians. So we just talk like music, but also like the esoteric side of music and vibration and sound. But it's been really fascinating. Even each individual person's story and their experience and their singing.
I feel like musicians always they're a lot more tapped in my experience. I'm not a musician, but it seems that most of these conspiracy people end up being musicians.
I know, right?
Yeah, something to it.
I'm learning the guitar right now, so I'm actually taking some guitar lessons. I have a guitar lesson tomorrow, and I found this guitar at a thrift store. It had its own case and came with like a tuner and everything. It was like one of these starter guitars, like an acoustic. I just had to get a new string put onto it. But other than that, like it just showed up. I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to learn guitar. And we've got other instruments that we've got. And I'm trying to teach my son, or trying to get him interested in music. I can't really teach him how to play an instrument, but I would like for him to learn how to play the piano and, just get in that musical mindset, thinking about sound and vibration and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I had my family had a grand piano my entire life, and I never tried to play it. Like I was like sitting there. That's like the one instrument I actually want to play now, and they don't have it anymore. But another instrument I might try is a banjo. I think banjo's kind of cool. But
yeah, it would be, or a steel guitar.
Yeah.
Or
I tried guitar, and I tried to play Crazy Train as my first song, and couldn't do it after a couple hours, and I was like, nah, I'm done with this. Like I just gave up. But,
so I got a book recommendation for you before I hop off.
All right.
Yeah. So I guess it's a pretty old Chinese book, but you can get it translated into English. And it's called, what is it called? Meadows of Gold and Mines of Gems.
That's a hell of a name.
And
Meadows
if
of
you
Gold?
just read Meadows of Gold and Mines, like a mine
Yeah, yeah.
of gems, and it's basically just the history of the world up until the point at which it was written, which could have been like 600 AD, something like that.
Yeah, the
Uh,
Chinese knows shit, I think.
oh yeah, I mean
They
they
got
were
a
laying
different
out.
culture. They don't yeah, I don't know.
They really broke down the whole Roman and Greek uh, esoteric knowledge and culture, and showed you how a lot of the stuff like the Bacchian and the Dionysian rituals and all of their magic was taken from knowledge that was developed long before them, and that they had lost access to the ancestral context that would give more wisdom to that knowledge. And so they practiced things, but they didn't have as much power as they once did because they'd lost touch with where that knowledge came from, and the cultural context in which it was derived was missing. And that's where all of the wisdom, what actually made the magic work, was inherently tied to the cultural practices, which they no longer observed. So,
Yeah, they were like tinkerers instead of like actually understanding how the principles work, I guess. I don't know.
right. And I don't know if that influenced Pythagoras at all, or if he figured it out. But there seems to be some discrepancy even in, like, if you look at the Eastern esoteric traditions versus the Western, there's a lot of differences. They may seem subtle, but it really does go to intent as well. And what do these people actually know how to do? Are the quote unquote Illuminati or the Masons? Most of these people they're not masters. Let's just put it that way. They're not levitating and controlling energy, at least not in that way. But there are some alchemists and sorcerers that are capable of those things.
I think Paracelsus was the last master. I think. I don't know. Maybe Keely. I don't know.
That we know of.
Yeah, right.
But then you have individuals who achieve that level of mastery of self that aren't part of a brotherhood. So this is the other, like
a sorcerer hermit named Punxsutawney.
Right. You don't need a lodge. You don't need a brotherhood to give you any knowledge. All of knowledge and wisdom is contained within you.
Yeah.
You simply have to observe nature and go within to discover this knowledge. I think Walter Russell was doing that. I think other people have done that throughout history. And then there's those who seek the lodge, who seek the brotherhood because they have degrees. Or they're born into it. Yeah. So there's different agendas playing out. I mean, everybody's going to have their own way of doing things. Every group is going to have their own rules that govern the behavior of its members. So, you can't even say that they're all bad or they're all good or that they're all on the same page or everyone,
Yeah, I agree.
Everyone's out there doing their thing.
I think it's a spiritual war. That's who the bad guys are. It's a spiritual thing, but really they're not the bad guys. They're trying to kickstart you into doing something. I don't know, into mastering yourself. But yeah, I think I should probably end it here. But
how do we evolve the consciousness of the collective, right? Yeah. How do we raise the collective consciousness? What is the best way to help everyone? And it may seem that some think it's through suppression, right? Through slavery, through law, through all of this stuff. That will bring the human consciousness up.
The cream what rises to the top, right?
Others believe that no, you should do something different, right? We should give this knowledge and wisdom to people, and we should give it to them through art through the sciences, through whatever means, right? Just through our daily activities, how we interact and treat other people. And so I think there's a lot of different philosophies on how to perform the great work on the collective.
Yeah, I agree. Um, yeah, I think I can just I'm gonna end it here. I think we could keep talking for another 5 hours, but
Oh yeah. All right. I'm gonna go,
all right,
but it's awesome, man.
yeah,
We'll talk soon.
all right, cool, yeah, definitely. I'll do this
All
again.
right.
That's it.
Take
Got it.